Hey guys, how's it going and welcome back. So is the iPhone 6s still worth buying in 2022? Well, I think we should discuss that. Currently it will run iOS 15.5, which is fine, and that's what's on my 6s. This is a phone I just picked up recently at a local hawk shop in North Bay. I paid 120 bucks for it, which I think was a little much, but it is a 128 gig model. And I guess it's not so bad, but I did have to spend 30 bucks and put a new battery in. That is one thing you're definitely going to find when picking up used 6S's right now is probably the vast majority of them are definitely going to have much weaker batteries in them. Mine was at something like 72% or something like that. I could make a phone call and then I could actually start watching the percentage go down, down, down without even doing anything. So yeah. Battery doesn't last that long at that kind of battery health statistic. You got better chances if you're in the 80s, 90s, and so on, right? And of course, nothing beats 100% health. You may find the odd one. Now, I would not recommend, absolutely not recommend buying any iPhone, no matter what it is, that has anything less than 64 gigs of storage in it. This phone came as 16 gig, 32 gig, 64, and 128. And I definitely recommend either the 64 or the 128 because this thing does have a rear-facing 12 megapixel 4K camera in it. And even if you're shooting at 1080p out the back or lower, you still have that 12 megapixel at that resolution. So your files are going to get large regardless, but 4K gets really big. Now, the front-facing camera is only 5 megapixel, 720p, which is fine. So recording footage, you know, for your selfies and front-facing stuff, whatever, that's going to be fine. Okay, it's not going to be massive files at 5 megapixel. But when you get up to the 12 megapixel range, things do tend to get large. So you need that space. Also, you're going to want to put your programs on there, any games you play, whatever, right? Now, I'm a kind of a basic iPhone user. I have a few apps like Facebook, Messenger, one of my bank apps. I do have Google Chrome installed as well. It already has Safari. I don't have GarageBand and a few other programs that don't actually get reloaded when you reset your phone. So when you buy a brand new phone, all of those things are there already for the standard Apple software, including the GarageBand. But when you reload, it's not there. You'll have to re-download it. But it's free anyway, so who cares, right? Besides, not everybody likes to play with GarageBand, and why waste the space if you don't need to? And I definitely don't even play with GarageBand on my iPhones. And I rarely ever touch it on my iPads, but I got plenty of storage, I'm not worried. Anyhow, so with that being said, 64, 128 is where you want to be at. Now, currently in the US, as of a couple of months ago, there was another YouTube channel I like to watch. I'll give him a shout out. This is Luke Miani. The guy is a total Mac mental case, in a good way though. And he talked about the 6S's being a value around $100 US. So that's a lot more than 120 Canadian at this point because our dollar sucks so bad. But it's still not a bad price, I guess, if it's a 128 in my books and it's got a really good healthy battery. Mine was not. So even though I still bit the bullet and I paid it anyway, I didn't have much option because all the other 6S's out there that I was going after, nobody responded. They saw my post on Facebook, you know, asking them, but no response. So it's kind of like, well, I'm going to keep looking. So I went to pawn shops, and the one pawn shop had this for $129. I got it for $120 plus the tax, and I figured, all right, well, whatever, it is what it is. If I want the phone bad enough, I'm going to pay for it, right? And that's the bottom line. We're going to pay for it if we want it bad enough. That's the thing. But I definitely would not have gone the 129. Not a chance. I would have walked away. So I'm glad I got it for 120. Between my wife and I, because of my injury to my wrist, we both managed to fandangle a brand new battery in this thing yesterday, so we're back up to 100% health. Also, twice the watt hour, twice the milliamp capacity of the battery. So that means a lot more run time, which is where you should be at. Apple does not do very well in the battery department for longevity of lasting in an iPhone for daily use. So third-party batteries tend to rule. But unfortunately, in the newer iPhones, we can't service them anymore with third-party stuff. Other than, I believe, the SE 2020 we can, because iFixit does carry the battery, and it's just a simple slap and go. But anything above the SE, like more than likely, and I won't swear to it because I don't know 100%, but I think it's more like the iPhone 10 to the 13s. Yeah, you're definitely going to Apple for not only the tools, but also if you need a screen or even a battery, and you're only going to get a factory battery. You're not going to get an upgraded battery, so you're kind of stuck there. Anyways, but at least you can keep your iPhone going for years to come. Now, as far as iOS 16, there are rumors, and rumors only so far. If you do a Google search, you'll find many posts up there that are directing towards saying that Apple is not going to allow iOS 16 on the 6S or the original iPhone SE. So we don't know for sure. Nobody does. Now, I would be quite happy, but also quite surprised if iOS 16 did go on. But the good news is simply this. It's still a viable phone, because even if they cut off 15.5 at 15.5, you're still going to get any other 15 updates, as well as you will get security updates for sure for a few years more. So it's not like you're out of the door just because it won't run 16. Kind of like a lot of our Mac computers, once they come to the last very end of the OS, we usually get about 3 or 4 years more of updates, mainly security updates though, before the computer is basically rendered useless on the internet because of no longer having any kind of security adapted into the computer. So yeah, your browser could be secure, but if your Mac isn't, they need to work together. And same as this, your browser and everything else, your iOS, needs to work together to be fully secure. Otherwise, you're risking your credit cards, your bank accounts, anything you sign into, period, you are risking being hacked very easily without security, as opposed to with Apple security, you're pretty much almost untouchable. Almost, okay? So anyways, but I think that as far as, you know, if you're going to look at the 6S 128 gig model, I think, you know, even though 120 to me seemed pretty steep considering it had a bad battery, I guess it's worth it in the end because it is the 128. As far as the 64 gig version of it goes, battery or no battery, that's going to depend on what you're willing to pay. But I mean, I just saw an iPhone 7 posted on Marketplace today for like 50 bucks. And it's like the 7 is definitely not on the chopping list. And the 7 is going to last for probably several more years, right? And I'm thinking, wow, I just paid 120 for this. But you know what? I'm okay with that. You know, it wasn't there when I had the money to go buy a phone, and I needed one anyways. And I do like the 6S's, and I know them well enough that I feel very secure in buying a 6S. And if I only get another 2 or 3 years of updates, you know, then I'm fine, because in another couple of years, I'm going to just buy another phone anyway. And I'm going to try and avoid, for as long as possible, to avoid any Apple phones where I have to deal with Apple for any parts and tools and accessories. So that's kind of where I'm at. But that's just me, right? I can make this stretch for quite a few more years before I have to actually comply and bow down to Apple for their stuff in that case. And being the fact that I'm just a regular phone user too, the other thing they did mention on the internet is even if your iOS does go out of date, your phone companies for many years are still going to support you just using this as a regular everyday phone, because that's not an issue, right? It's trying to surf and trying to do programs where you have anything to sign into. Now your Apple ID security should still always stay intact no matter what on your iOS. At least that's the theory. So you shouldn't have to worry about that. But you could easily just sign out of your Apple ID anyway and just use this as a regular everyday phone for probably several years to come. You know, and as long as you can get screens and home buttons and other parts and accessories and batteries that you can get and have been able to get now for several years on Amazon, why not keep it going as long as you can? And besides, it also depends on how much you really care about using those programs. Me, Currently, I use Facebook, like I said. I use Messenger. I do a bit of browsing here and there, a little bit of YouTube videos, watching them. I don't really shoot much in the way of videos on phones. I have a DSLR camera for that. And if I really want something even nicer, I do have a really sweet iPad Air 4 with 4K cameras. So, and besides, bigger screen, you get to see more and everything else, right? So it's not like I'm without. And, you know, and I just generally, I don't even talk a lot to a lot of people anyhow. You know, I use my phone more for just talking to my friend the odd time or a couple friends the odd time. I might use it to receive calls, you know, for certain things. But otherwise, yeah, I'm really not even technically a cell phone person in a lot of ways. So to me, it doesn't really make a difference. But to you, it might. Now, if you are a kind of person that must have the latest and greatest iOS that's coming out, then probably this is not going to be the phone for you if it does not run 16. And like I said, we don't know until 16 is released this fall, and that's going to be late fall before iOS 16 is out. Then we'll know if it'll even run on this or not, in which case I will give you guys an update video on that, whether it runs or not, so that at least you know that if it's not going to run, you've got at least a couple more years of security updates, so you are still fine, but you're going to still have several years past that where your phone company is still going to support you. At least that's the idea for now. Technology is moving rather rapidly, so who knows what's going to happen even next month. You know what I mean? So anyhow, but I still stand by my original review on this thing. It is a great phone, and I really like it. And I love the fact that it does have a 4K camera, because at least when I take my well, it's actually offline now, is my 12 mini. My 12 mini is actually going to be going back to my cellular company in January of 2023 when my contract is due up, because they want another additional $400 because they extended me this stupid credit thing ahead of time. And in order to own the phone at the end of the contract, I have to pay the balance of the phone, which is about $400 that they want. And then I own it. And it's like, I don't want to own it because it's only a year and a half old now, and the battery health is at 87%. It's not even going to last a full 2 years, and I'm not investing money in that. Okay, I find that the battery is definitely a bad apple on the 12 mini, because that's what I've discovered over the long-term use. So do stay tuned for a long-term review, because there'll be more than just the battery we're going to talk about. There are still a lot of good things about the 12 mini, but the battery is just definitely not one of them. Anyhow, so for now I've taken it offline, I've signed it out, I've gotten it off my accounts, and I've reset the phone to as if it were brand new, going to a new owner kind of thing. And it's back in its box. So I'm using this full time now. But anyways, so yeah, I definitely would recommend, but like I said, stay away from 16 and 32 gig phones of any kind. They are garbage, they're useless. The iOS 15.5 right now, with its current updates that are in there, and just having Facebook Messenger, my bank app, and setting up my Apple Watch with this thing, I have used up 12.2 gigabytes of space. So if you only have a 16 or a 32 gig iPhone 6, which has a beautiful 4K camera, but can, like I said, go lower, but you're still at 12 megapixels on all those lower ends, yeah, you got no space to deal with. You don't even have space for games. You won't have a lot of space for photos. I mean, they're just pointless. So 64, 128 gig is perfect and a success. Newer phones, I would probably say if you can get a 256 gig model, definitely do it. It would be worthwhile. Same as your iPads. You know, iPads will last you 10, 12, 13, 14 years. You know, you really should have more storage if you can get it. When I got my Air 4, unfortunately, all the courier had was a 64 gig model. And I am coasting along rather well with it. It is working for me for what I use it for. But some people do go a lot more intense in their use on an iPad than what I do too, which is another thing. But at least my iPads are both fine for iOS 16. That's not even up for discussion. They will both run it fine. And I have plenty of storage in my 7th gen over my iPad Air 4. But anyway, so as far as everything else goes, fantastic phone, great buy. yes, still very viable in 2022. It's definitely going to last us for the iOS security updates till probably somewhere around 2025 at the very latest. And then after that, it's just going to be phone support only through your courier, using it as a phone, but then everything else is going to be kind of pointless on it. So kind of choose your things where you're at, what you need to do now, and can you wait or can you not wait? Do you really need the newest iOS or tech? And like I said, we still don't know if 16 is going to work on this, but even if it does, we're only going to get so far with 16. We will not get to the very next one after that, that's for sure. So anyways, thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and go grab one of these things if you're interested in them. You know, they're pretty good phones. See ya.